The day they took my daughter. I still remember the sound of the hospital that morning. Not the machines, not the footsteps, not the distant murmurs behind thin curtains. I remember my daughter breathing, soft, uneven, new, 18 days old, 18 days since Sophia entered this world and rearranged every molecule of my existence. I had just finished feeding her. She was warm against my chest, her tiny fingers wrapped around nothing but instinct and trust. She smelled like milk and clean cotton, like beginnings. I didn't know then that this would be the last moment I would hold her as her mother for 23 years. The woman appeared sometime after noon. She wore blue scrubs. Her badge caught the light. She smiled the way hospital staff smile, practiced, calm, unquestionable. "You're doing great," she said, glancing at Sophia. "The pediatrician wants to run one more routine check." Routine. That word disarmed me. Hospitals teach you something quickly. You stop questioning authority. You hand your body, your baby, and your fear to people who look like they know what they're doing. I hesitated, just for a second. Sophia whimpered. I kissed her forehead. "How long?" I asked. "Just a few minutes." Minutes. I handed her my child. I watched her walk away. That was the moment my life split in two, before the hallway swallowed my daughter, after the world learned how cruel silence can be. At first, I wasn't afraid. I folded Sophia's blanket. I straightened the bassinet. I told myself she'd be back before my coffee cooled. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Something inside me shifted. A pressure, a wrongness. I stepped into the hallway. "Nurse," I asked another woman passing by. My baby was taken for a check. She stopped. "What's the baby's name?" "Sophia." Her smile faded. She checked a clipboard. Then another. Her voice dropped. "Ma'am, no one signed her out." The world didn't explode. It collapsed inward. I remember screaming Sophia's name, but I don't remember hearing it. I remember people running, radios crackling, doors slamming open. I remember the police arriving too quickly, and somehow not quickly enough. They locked the hospital down. Too late. The woman in scrubs was gone, and so was my daughter. That was day one, the day my baby became a case file. That night, I slept in the hospital bed alone. I kept expecting to hear her cry. I kept replaying the moment, the badge, the smile, the word routine. If I had held her tighter, if I had walked with them, if I had trusted my instinct instead of my fear of appearing difficult. By morning, Chicago knew my daughter's name. By nightfall, I learned something no mother ever should. When a child disappears, time stops for the parent, but the world keeps moving. And somewhere out there, someone was raising my daughter. I just didn't know it yet. The first night without her, the first thing they ask you when your child goes missing is your name. Not your child's name. Yours. As if anchoring you to a form might keep you from drifting away. I told them my name. I spelled it. I said it again when the pen froze over the carbon copy. The officer's hand shook. I noticed that. I noticed everything. They asked what Sophia was wearing. I almost laughed. "She's 18 days old," I said. She was wearing what babies wear. They waited. A blanket. White. Yellow trim. Ducks. My voice broke on ducks. They asked about the woman in scrubs. Her height. Her hair. Her accent. I remembered her smile better than her face. That terrified me. They sealed the exits. They questioned staff. They ran the tapes. They said words like procedure, protocol, and perimeter. And I kept waiting for someone to say the only sentence that mattered. We found her. No one did. By evening, the hospital lights felt cruel. Too bright, too clean. As if nothing bad could happen in a place that smelled like antiseptic and hope. They moved me to a small room near security. A chair, a phone, a box of tissues that felt like an insult. An officer sat across from me, his badge heavy on his chest. He looked young, younger than my fear. "Ma'am," he said gently, "we need to walk through the timeline again." Again. I closed my eyes. I went back to the hallway. The way Sophia's head lolled slightly when the woman adjusted her grip. The squeak of the floor. The way the elevator doors closed too softly. Did you see which direction she went? No. Did anyone accompany her? No. Did you question her? No. Each no felt like a confession. At some point, a reporter found my name. Then another. Then all of them. Cameras appeared like vultures. Microphones hovered inches from my face, hungry for grief. How do you feel right now? How do you feel when someone steals your future? I just want my baby back, I said. That sentence would become my life's refrain. They broadcast Sophia's photo on the evening news. 18 days old, barely a face, mostly possibility. The anchor said abducted. That word detonated in my chest. Abductions happen in movies, in nightmares, not in maternity wards, not to women who follow rules and trust uniforms, not to me. That night, they sent me home. Home, as if home still existed. The crib waited exactly where I'd left it. The mobile turned slightly in the draft. Ducks again. Always ducks. I sat on the floor and held her blanket until my arms went numb. I did not sleep. Every sound outside became footsteps. Every car door was a return. I imagined the woman bringing her back, apologizing, crying, saying it was a mistake. I imagined Sophia screaming for me. I imagined her silent. By dawn, hope had turned into something sharper. Fear had teeth. The second day was worse, because by the second day, the police stopped promising. They started explaining. We believe the suspect planned this. She may have watched the ward. These cases are rare, but, I learned that but is where hope goes to die. They showed me sketches. None of them felt right. Every face felt like a stranger wearing her smile. They asked about my past, my relationships, my mental state, as if I had done this. I answered anyway, because when your child is missing, you cooperate with everything. You become pliable, grateful for any attention, any effort, any crumb. That night, they knocked on my door. I stood up so fast my vision went black. They shook their heads before they spoke. No updates, they said. I thanked them. I thanked them for not finding my daughter. Weeks passed, then months. The case moved from breaking news to human interest to background noise. Birthdays came, holidays, silence. I left Sophia's room untouched. People told me that was unhealthy. I told them they didn't know what health looked like anymore. Every phone call jolted my body. Every knock shattered my nerves. I learned to live in fragments. Morning, afternoon, night, never tomorrow. They told me to prepare for the possibility. No, I said. They told me to accept. No, they told me to move on. I learned then that grief has enemies. People want you healed, so they can be comfortable. I chose discomfort. I chose waiting. The first anniversary came quietly. No news vans. No statements. Just me. A cake I didn't light. A song I didn't sing. I whispered to the empty room. Happy birthday, Sophia. I promised her something that day. I promised I would never stop saying her name. Years went by. The detectives changed. The files thickened. The leads thinned. The word cold ended the conversation. I hated that word. Cold implies death. I refused it. I started keeping my own records. Articles, tips, letters from strangers who thought they'd seen her. A woman in Ohio, a toddler in Texas, a baby in a grocery store. That felt right. I chased everyone. Most were nothing. Some were cruel. All were necessary, because doing nothing would have killed me. At night, I dreamed of Sophia as a grown child. Sometimes she ran toward me. Sometimes she turned away. Sometimes she looked at me with accusation. Why didn't you stop her? I woke up every time with the same thought. She's alive. I don't know how I knew. I just did. They eventually told me the truth in a way only institutions do. Carefully, casually, final. We're reallocating resources. The case wasn't closed, but it wasn't alive either. It lived in a filing cabinet. I took a copy of her file home. I sat on the floor again. I added my own words, my own memories, my own hope. If the system forgot her, I wouldn't. 23 years. That's how long it would take. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was this. Somewhere, A woman was tucking my daughter into bed. Somewhere, Sophia was calling someone else mom. And somewhere inside her, whether she knew it or not, my voice was still waiting. A missing child becomes a cold case. They don't tell you when a missing child becomes a cold case. There's no meeting, no phone call, no letter with an official seal. It happens quietly, like dust settling on a photograph no one looks at anymore. I noticed it the day the detective forgot Sophia's birthday. He was kind about it, apologetic. He flipped through the file, searching for the date, as if it were just another line item. "It's been a long time," he said. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Time had become the enemy. Not the woman who took her, not the locked doors, not the lies. Time. Time erases urgency. Time dulls outrage. Time teaches people how to live with unfinished stories. But I couldn't. Sophia would have been 5. I imagined her starting school. I imagined scraped knees and missing teeth and questions I wasn't there to answer. Every milestone passed like a funeral no one else attended. I stopped correcting people when they avoided her name. I stopped expecting understanding. Grief makes other people uncomfortable. Long grief makes them impatient. They wanted closure. I wanted my daughter. The calls slowed. The follow-ups became annual, then optional, then non-existent. One detective told me, off the record, that there were thousands of open cases like Sophia's. Thousands. I remember thinking, then how do you sleep? I didn't ask. I already knew the answer. I learned how to function in public. I smiled at grocery stores. I nodded at neighbors. I went to work and paid bills and laughed at jokes that felt like they belonged to someone else. But inside me, everything remained suspended. I lived in a permanent state of almost. Almost a phone call. Almost a knock. Almost a miracle. I started keeping rituals. Every year on Sophia's birthday, I wrote her a letter. I told her who she would have been, what music was popular, what kind of world she was growing into. I told her I was still here. I didn't know where to send the letters, so I kept them. A drawer full of time. People suggested therapy. I went. They asked me to visualize acceptance. I walked out. Acceptance felt like betrayal. When Sophia would have been 10, a woman approached me at a gas station. "I think I know your daughter," she whispered. My heart stopped. She told me about a girl with dark eyes and quiet sadness, about a woman who never let anyone ask questions. I followed that lead across 2 states. It went nowhere. I cried in a hotel bathroom, so quietly I scared myself. Then I drove home, and I kept going. When Sophia would have been 13, the internet changed everything. Missing children databases, forums, message boards. For the first time, I wasn't alone. There were others like me. Mothers who never stopped waiting. Fathers who memorized license plates. Siblings who grew up with ghosts. We spoke in fragments and hope. We learned new words. DNA, genealogy, probability. I learned that science was doing what institutions couldn't. And I waited. Sophia would have been 16. I imagined her driving, dating, fighting with whoever was raising her. I wondered if she felt out of place. If something inside her whispered that her life didn't begin where she thought it did. I wondered if she missed me without knowing why. People sometimes asked if I thought Sophia remembered me. I didn't answer. Memory isn't the only thing that binds us. There are deeper threads. When she would have been 18, I stood outside the hospital where she was taken. It looked smaller, less important. I touched the wall. I told myself something I hadn't allowed before. If she comes back as an adult, I will still be her mother. Love doesn't expire. Years passed. I aged in ways grief accelerates. My hair grayed early. My hand shook sometimes. But my resolve sharpened. I learned patience without surrender. Hope without delusion. One day, a letter arrived. Not from the police. From a woman in another state. She had taken a DNA test just for fun. She thought she might be adopted. Her results didn't make sense. She found my name online. She asked if I was missing a daughter. My hands dropped the paper. I sat on the floor. Again, I didn't open the envelope for a full hour, because opening it meant something worse than waiting. It meant change. That letter would sit unopened for 2 days. 2 days where everything I'd survived balanced on an edge. 2 days where I remembered every duck on every blanket. 2 days where hope and terror shared the same breath. But that comes next, because before miracles, there is always doubt, and before reunions, there is fear. Raising a ghost. You don't stop being a mother when your child is taken. That's the lie people tell themselves so they can sleep. You don't stop being a mother. You become something else. You become a keeper of absence, a caretaker of memory, a woman raising a child who exists everywhere and nowhere at once. I raised Sophia without her. I raised her in my head, in my heart, and in the spaces between breaths. I raised a ghost. People assume that when a child disappears, the love freezes at the age they vanished, that it stays infant-sized. They're wrong. Love grows whether there's a body to receive it or not. It has nowhere to go, so it fills you instead. Some days, it nearly drowned me. I learned how to mother milestones that never happened. I imagined Sophia's first steps, her first word, her first heartbreak. I argued with her in my mind when she would have been stubborn. I defended her when she would have been misunderstood. I forgave her in advance for mistakes she hadn't yet made. I knew her personality before I knew her face. When people had children around me, I smiled. When they complained, I nodded. When they took pictures, I excused myself. Not because I hated them, because grief doesn't want witnesses. Sophia aged in my imagination. She stopped being a baby and became a child, then a teenager, then a woman I might pass on the street. I wondered if she laughed loudly or quietly, if she liked sweet coffee or none at all, if she trusted easily. I wondered if she was loved. That question never stopped hurting. I tried dating once. The man asked if I had children. Yes, I said. How old? I froze. Older than you think, I replied. He didn't ask again. Neither did I. People told me I was strong. I hated that word. Strongly suggests choice. I didn't choose this. I survived it. There were days I almost let go. Days when the idea of peace felt tempting. But every time I edged toward acceptance, something pulled me back. A dream. A coincidence. A name spoken too loudly in a crowd. Hope has a voice. It whispers. I stopped moving her room eventually. Not because I gave up, but because I didn't need the furniture anymore. Sophia lived inside me now. The years Sophia would have been in college were the hardest. That's when children leave by choice. That's when mothers learn to let go. I had already lost her. What was there left to learn? I became an expert in missing children cases. I memorized statistics no mother should know. I learned that most abducted infants grow up unaware. I learned that reunions happen sometimes. I learned that DNA was rewriting endings. I learned that truth waits. And then the letter came. The one I didn't open. It sat on the table like a live wire. Because if the woman was wrong, I would break. And if she was right, I didn't know if I could survive the collision between past and present. I realized then that hope is not gentle. Hope is violent. It tears open wounds you've learned to live with. I thought about Sophia's first day of school. Her first friend. Her first lie. Someone else had those moments. Someone else shaped her. I had to accept something terrifying. If she came back, she wouldn't come back as mine alone. She would be hers. And that was the price of truth. On the second night, I dreamed of her face for the first time. Not as a baby, as a woman. She looked at me without recognition. And still I loved her. That morning, I opened the letter. My hand shook so badly I tore the edge. The woman wrote simply. She said she felt off her whole life. She said her records didn't add up. She said she took a DNA test for answers. She said she found me. She asked one question. Could I be your daughter? I didn't cry. I couldn't breathe. The world narrowed to a single sentence. 23 years collapsed into a heartbeat. I didn't know yet that science would confirm what my soul already screamed. I didn't know yet that justice doesn't always wear handcuffs. I only knew this. The ghost I raised was about to step into the light. The girl who didn't know her name. I want to be careful here, because this part of the story is not just mine to tell. For 23 years, Sophia lived a life that belonged to her, even if it was built on a lie she never chose. So I tell this part the way I learned it. Slowly, respectfully, and with the understanding that truth can hurt even when it heals. Before I ever heard her voice, I knew something about her. She had survived. That alone told me everything. She was raised by a woman who called herself her mother. A woman who never let questions linger too long. A woman who controlled details the way some people control oxygen. Sophia told me later that she grew up feeling out of place. Not abused. Not unloved in the way people expect. But watched. Managed. As if her life had rules no one explained. She said she always felt older than her age. That she didn't trust easily. That she learned early how to read rooms. How to sense danger without knowing why. I listened, and I thought of the hospital hallway. Trauma leaves fingerprints. Even when the mind doesn't remember, the body does. She said there were no baby pictures before a certain age. That medical records were vague. That birthdays were celebrated but never discussed. That question was met with irritation. She learned which ones not to ask. Children always do. Sophia told me she felt like a guest in her own life. Like she'd been dropped into a story already in progress. I closed my eyes when she said that, because I had spent 23 years waiting for her to enter mine again. As a teenager, she began to notice the cracks. Dates that didn't line up. Stories that changed. A silence that felt intentional. She said the woman who raised her reacted badly to curiosity. Anger instead of reassurance. Fear instead of love. Sophia didn't know what she was looking for. Only that something was missing. And somehow, impossibly, she was brave enough to go looking. When she told me about the DNA test, her voice shook. I just wanted answers, she said. She wasn't hunting for a family. She was hunting for truth. She said the results didn't make sense. No maternal match. No familiar branches. Just empty space where identity should be. Then she found me. Not through police. Not through a database alert. Through persistence. Through intuition. Through the same thread that had kept me waiting all those years. When she asked if she could be my daughter, I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I said, I've been waiting for you. That was the first time she cried. She told me later that hearing those words felt like gravity returning. Like something inside her finally landed. We moved slowly after that. We had to. Truth needs time to breathe. DNA tests were arranged. Lawyers were consulted. Authorities were notified. Every step felt surreal. Clinical. Paperwork confirming what my body already knew. The DNA results came back. Match. I remember the room spinning. I remember gripping the edge of the table. I remember whispering her name like a prayer. Sophia. She was my daughter. The baby taken from my arms had found her way back. But she didn't come back as a baby. She came back as a woman carrying 23 years of someone else's choices. The woman who took her never came forward. Never explained. Never apologized. Justice, in the legal sense, would never arrive. I had to make peace with that. Because something greater had happened. The truth had escaped. Sophia struggled with anger. Not at me. At the theft of her story. At the years she could never reclaim. At the realization that her entire foundation was built on deception. I held space for that anger. Because it was earned. She asked me what her life was supposed to look like. I told her the truth. There is no supposed to. There's only now. We talked for hours. About nothing. About everything. We compared hands. Laughed at shared expressions. Noticed the same habits. Science explained match. Love explained the rest. She asked me once if I hated the woman who raised her. I thought carefully. I hate what she stole, I said, but I won't let her steal the rest. Sophia nodded. She understood that justice sometimes looks like freedom, not punishment. Meeting her in person came later. That moment deserves its own chapter. Because reunions are not explosions. They are earthquakes. They change everything beneath the surface. The break in the silence. The phone rang on a Tuesday. That detail matters to me, though I don't know why. Maybe because Tuesdays are ordinary. They don't prepare you for miracles. They don't warn you that your life is about to split open again. I almost didn't answer. I had learned, over the years, to fear the phone. Every ring carried disappointment more often than hope. Numbers I didn't recognize usually meant scams, wrong numbers, or well-meaning strangers with false sightings. but something made me pick it up. Hello. There was a pause on the other end. A breath. Then a voice I had waited 23 years to hear, even though I didn't know it yet. Hi. I'm not sure how to say this. Her voice was steady but thin, like glass stretched too far. I think you might be my mother. I sat down on the floor before my legs gave out. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't speak. I pressed my hand to my mouth and listened to her breathe. The world had gone very quiet. I'm sorry if this is wrong, she said quickly. I don't want to hurt you. I've been trying to understand who I am. Who I am. Those words hit me harder than anything else. Take your time, I said finally. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone older. I'm here. And then she told me her story again, this time with pauses, with hesitations, and with moments where emotion caught in her throat. I let her talk. I had waited decades. I could wait a little longer. After the call ended, I sat in silence for hours. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Hope is fragile when it first arrives. It startles easily. I didn't want to scare it away. That night, I slept for the first time in years. Not deeply, but without fear. The days that followed were filled with steps that felt unreal. Emails, appointments, consent forms. Words like genetic markers and maternal match were suddenly attached to my daughter's name. We spoke every day, sometimes about the case, sometimes about the weather, sometimes about nothing at all. We were learning each other in fragments. I didn't want to overwhelm her. She didn't want to disappoint me. We danced carefully around the truth, both afraid of stepping too hard. The night before the DNA results arrived, I didn't sleep. I sat at the table with the letters I'd written to Sophia over the years. I wondered if I'd ever show them to her. I wondered if she'd resent them. I wondered if love could arrive too late. The call came at 9:12 a.m. The counselor's voice was calm, professional, kind. The results confirm a parent-child match. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Then the words settled. Confirmed. Match. Parent. Child. I thanked her. I don't know why. I hung up and screamed. Not a scream of pain. A scream of release. 23 years of silence shattered in one breath. I called Sophia. She answered on the first ring. It's you, she said. It's us, I replied. She cried. I cried. There was no script for this moment. No guidebook. There's no right way to react when a stolen life is returned. We just let it happen. Meeting her in person was the hardest part, because once we crossed that line, there would be no going back to imagination. Reality is heavier than hope. We chose a neutral place, a small room with a table between us. I arrived early. My hands shook. I worried about everything. What if she didn't like me? What if she felt nothing? What if I saw her and felt like a stranger? The door opened, and there she was. Not the baby I lost. Not the ghost I raised. A woman. My daughter. She looked at me the way people look at mirrors they don't trust yet. Carefully. Curious. Afraid. We didn't hug right away. We just looked. 23 years passed between us like a held breath. Then she smiled, and I recognized her. We talked for hours. About her childhood. About my waiting. About what had been taken. We laughed when we realized we shared the same nervous habits. We cried when the weight became too much. We took breaks. Truth comes in waves. She asked me what happened the day she disappeared. I told her. Every detail. I watched her face as she absorbed it. I saw anger flash. Grief. Relief. All at once. She said quietly, "So it wasn't you." I took her hand. "It was never you," I said. The silence that had ruled my life was gone. But silence doesn't leave quietly. It echoes. And we would spend years learning how to live without it. The reunion. People imagine reunions as explosions. Tears. Running. Arms thrown wide. Music swelling at just the right moment. That's what movies teach us. But real reunions are quieter. Heavier. They arrive carrying years, not minutes. When Sophia and I met again after the DNA confirmation, it wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something fragile, something untested. Love doesn't automatically know where to go when it's been waiting 23 years. It has to learn. We started with time. Short visits, long conversations. We learned how to sit together without filling every silence. We learned each other's rhythms. She drank her coffee too fast. I folded napkins without noticing. We laughed when we realized how similar our hands were. We cried when we noticed how many moments were missing. Sophia struggled with anger, not just toward the woman who took her, but toward the world that allowed it to happen, toward institutions that failed, toward years that couldn't be returned. I never tried to soften that anger. Anger was proof she understood the injustice. She asked if I wanted revenge. I thought about it. About prison. About courtrooms. About headlines. No, I said. I want truth. And I want you free. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about restoration. The woman who took her remained silent. No confession. No accountability. She faded into obscurity. I had to accept that the system would never close that loop. But something had closed inside me. The waiting. Sophia asked if she could call me Mom. I didn't answer right away. Because that word carries weight. It carries expectation. It carries history. I'm here, I said. You can decide what to call me when you're ready. She nodded. Relief crossed her face. That's when I understood. Reunions aren't about reclaiming. They're about offering. We rebuilt slowly. Holidays came with awkward pauses. Photos felt staged at first, but then they softened. We learned how to share space, how to disagree, how to forgive moments that never had a chance to exist. Sophia began therapy. I joined her later, not because I was broken, but because healing is a shared language. We learned how trauma echoes across generations, how stolen identity leaves cracks that love must fill gently. One afternoon, she brought me a small box. Inside were papers, old documents, notes, things she'd collected before finding me. I don't need these anymore, she said. I held them like relics, evidence of survival. When the media came calling, we said no. This story didn't belong in headlines. It belonged to us, to quiet mornings, 2 coffee cups left in the sink, to ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because we'd waited so long. Sophia eventually asked me something I'd feared. Do you feel like you missed my life? I told her the truth. I missed moments, I said, but I never missed you. She cried. So did I. Justice arrived in unexpected ways. In knowledge, in choice, in the freedom to define ourselves outside the crime. The woman who stole her lost something too. Control. Secrets don't survive truth. Sophia reclaimed her name. That mattered more than anything. Names anchor us. They tell the world who we are. And for the first time, she belonged to herself. The last thing she said before leaving that day stays with me. I don't feel lost anymore. Neither do I. What was taken? What was returned? For a long time, I thought the story would end with an arrest, a courtroom, a verdict, a sentence that would balance the scales. That's what justice looks like on television. But real justice is quieter. It doesn't always wear handcuffs. It doesn't always come with apologies. Sometimes justice arrives as truth. What was taken from me can never be fully returned. I lost first steps I never saw, first words I never heard, birthdays that passed without candles. No reunion erases that, and I don't pretend it does. But something else was restored. Identity. Sophia reclaimed her name, her history, and her origin. She was no longer a question mark. She was whole. For 23 years, I lived inside a question. Where's my daughter? That question shaped me. It aged me. It sharpened me. It taught me patience beyond reason. But it also taught me something else. Love doesn't need proximity to survive. Sophia and I are still learning. There is no finish line for this kind of healing. There are moments of joy and moments of grief that resurface without warning. But now we face them together. That is the gift. I think often about the woman who took her, not with hatred, with sadness, because you cannot steal a life without shrinking your own. Her secret became her prison. Sophia's truth became her freedom. That is justice. This story is not just ours. It belongs to every parent still waiting, to every name on a missing poster, to every child who feels out of place without knowing why. Science is changing endings. Truth is catching up. Hope is not naive anymore. If you are waiting, do not let the world convince you to stop. Time does not erase love, and silence does not mean absence. To the investigators who never forgot Sophia's file, even when the system did, thank you. To the strangers who shared her face, to the technology that finally spoke the truth, to my daughter, who had the courage to ask who she was. You are the heroes of this story. I once promised Sophia I would never stop saying her name. Now I say it with her, not as a plea, but as a declaration. She is here. She is home. Lesson: evil relies on silence. Justice begins with truth. And love, real love, waits as long as it has to. If this story reached you, remember this. Some endings take decades. Some miracles take science. And some mothers never stop listening for footsteps in the hall. Thank you for listening. Sophia Haye. Found. Thanks for your time you always spend to watch our videos. We greatly value your support, so please share this video with your loved ones. Do us a favor and subscribe right away. Tell us how you would feel in the comment section if you are the mother of the baby.